The views expressed and the opinions given by the individual host and their guests do not necessarily express those of W Rock Radio and its sponsors. All shows are independently owned and broadcast for entertainment purposes only. Readers and listeners are advised that neither W Rock Radio nor its owners and agents shall be held liable for the content of programs. Website content and any audio produced and streamed by W Rock Radio is protected copyright and may not be recorded, rebroadcast, redistributed, or reused without express written permission from W Rock Radio.
Innocence, crippling mankind. Dead kings, many things I can't define. Occasions, buzz, wagons, clutter your mind. Innocence and compliments, the color of time. Who cares what games we choose? Little to win, but nothing to lose. Innocence and compliments, meaningless nouns. Turn on, tune in, turn your eyes around. Look at yourself, look at yourself, yeah, yeah. Look at yourself, look at yourself, yeah, yeah, yeah. Tutor by the cockeyed world in two. Throw your pride to one side is the least you can do. Beatniks and politics, nothing is new. A yardstick for lunatics, one point of view. Who cares what games we choose? Little to win, but nothing to lose. Good sense, innocence, cripple mankind. Dead kings and many things I can define. Occasions, buzz, wagons, clutter your mind. Innocence and compliments, the color of time. Who cares what games we choose? Little to win, but nothing to lose. Incense, peppermints, incense, peppermints. Sha-la-la, sha-la-la, sha-la-la,
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good day around the world, ladies and gentlemen. This is Jerry Gallagher. I'm bringing you the Indie Music Spotlight tonight. Our regular host, Sherry Emily, is a bit under the weather, so I'm substituting tonight, but I've got a great show for you tonight, and that song should have given away a little bit about who's on the show tonight. Yes, it's Incense and Peppermints, and it's Strawberry Alarm Clock, our guest tonight, ladies and gentlemen. But before we get to them and talk all about what they've done in the past, what they're doing now, and what they're doing for the future, I'm going to tell you, if you want to get on Indie Music Spotlight, be sure to send in 2 or 3 MP3s, and I'll give you an email address you can send those into. That's sherry.emily, that's SHERRI.emily@gmail.com. Send those in to her, and she'll review them, and you may be on this show pretty soon. Well, Sherry is our normal host on the show. Again, I'm sorry that she's under the weather tonight, and Ronnie Barr is moving house, so I join the call from time to time again when I have special guests on the call, and I have some real special guests on the call tonight. They're calling in from California, where I am as well. So windy California today in Calabasas, and we have George Spinell, who is also from Calabasas, California, on the line, and we have Mark White, also from California. Strawberry Alarm Clock original members George Spinell and Mark White. Listen, guys, I thank you so much for coming on the call. I really appreciate it. Welcome.
Thanks, Jerry.
Well, thanks, Jerry. Fun to be here.
You're very welcome. Well, Strawberry Alarm Clock has quite a history, and we're going to talk a lot about that tonight, and we're going to tell some of the stories about how they got their name, and Incense and Peppermints, and the amazing rise to fame of Strawberry Alarm Clock in 1967, 68, 69, and it's going to be a lot of fun. It's my pleasure to have you guys on the call. George lives right in Calabasas where I live, and we run into George a lot down at my show when we do it down at live down in Woodland Hills there. So, well, welcome all again, guys. We're really, really, love having you on the show tonight, and it's going to be a little bit of fun here. Great. So,
okay, let's do it.
Let's do it. First of all, I'm going to just because Sherry Emily is a huge, huge Strawberry Alarm Clock fan, and she loves Incense Peppermints. I'm going to bring her on the line. She's got a bad throat, but she wants to come on and say hello to you guys. So let's do that first. Let's get Sherry Emily to come on and say hello to George Bunnell and Mark White.
Hi, George. Hi, Mark. How you doing?
Hi,
Good.
Sherry.
Your voice sounds cute. I like that.
Oh, it's a little scratchy right now, but thank you. Oh, I'm so excited you're
Well,
on into Music Spotlight. Oh, my God.
Well, we hope you get better quick.
Thank you so much, and I'm looking forward to this interview tonight. Thank you, thank you. Thank you for being here. I'm so excited. So let's rock on.
Let's rock on with Strawberry Alarm Clock. So, all right, guys, let's go and talk about a little bit the history of Strawberry Alarm Clock. But in addition to that, we're going to be playing some of your newer stuff tonight, and we're going to be playing 4 songs, Drifting Away, Mr. Farmer, Wake Up, and World Citizen. And we're going to get to that as the hour progresses. We'll run all 4 of those songs as we go through the hour here. But Strawberry Alarm Clock goes way back now to 1967, and you had... not only did you have Incense Peppermints, you had 5 charting songs on the charts of both Billboard, and you really did lighten up the world with Incense Peppermints. I don't know how many people I've heard that have told me that's one of their favorite songs of all time. Tell us a little bit about that. Where did the song Incense Peppermints come from? What was the motivation behind it, and who named it?
This is a Mark White. Mark White is the one that's going to answer this question because he is the inceptor.
The inceptor, I love it.
Well, George, it's probably one of the most long, winding journeys of any song that's Strawberry Alarm Clock or any group probably. I can't speak for other groups, but this song had quite a journey before it came to the actual finished product. I came up with an idea for music. I came up with some music, and I called Ed King, our lead guitar player, which later went to Leonard Skinner and wrote Sweet Home Alabama after that. But when I called Ed up, I think Ed was just barely turned 18. I said, Ed, I've got this idea for an original song, because we were coming from a band called The Sixpence, and it had just turned into the Strawberry Alarm Clock. And that's another story that we can talk about the name change. But this music I came up with, I had the song, just the music itself, no lyrics, partially finished, and I said, Ed, I need a bridge on this song. That's in every song, most songs have a bridge. That's like the middle part. And so Ed came over and brought us his Fender Telecaster with him, and we worked out the middle part in about 20, 30 minutes, and we actually finished the music that day, and the song was originally about a minute longer, and we had no lyrics to it. So the band went into the studio and recorded the music track. We did not have the name Incense and Peppermints on it at the time. It was unnamed. We went into Hollywood to Art Bo's original sound studio. He was well known for all the oldies but goodies, reissues, and so on and so forth. And we recorded the music track, and we had no lyrics to it. At the time, our producer, Frank Slay Jr., took that track and mailed it, back in those days, I guess we still mailed things, to John Carter and Tim Gilbert, which were also under contract with Frank Slay. They were in a band called the Rainy Days, they had a hit, kind of an infamous hit called Acapulco Gold. That was quickly taken off the radio when I guess the powers that be realized what Acapulco Gold was. That was a novelty song. But anyway, that's what they were known for, and they had a band called the Rainy Days. And what they did was they listened to the music track, and John Carter primarily came up with these lyrics and mailed back this reel-to-reel tape of him playing a six-string guitar, acoustic, with the lyrics that you hear on the finished product, Incense and Peppermints, that had the title Incense and Peppermints on it. So we went into the studio, and without getting into a long, involved story, because this is a long, involved story, and I don't think we have enough time probably on the air to go into it, but someday maybe, who knows. What happened is we went into the studio and put the vocals on and the background harmonies, and they cut a verse out. They edited it down to 3 minutes and 16 seconds, I believe, and it was supposed to be the B-side of a 45 that we were putting out. It's a 45 RPM record, which was still popular back in 1967, 66, 67. We recorded it in mono. Our producer said, we don't need a stereo version of this. Everything on 45 is mainly mono. And so that song, unfortunately, never was mixed in a stereo full separation. When we released it on our album, it actually was mono and 2 channels, left and right channel, unfortunately.
Wow.
And we were not real happy about that. But anyway, is there any other questions? I mean, because there's way more to the story than what I'm telling you, including who actually sang on the record and so on and so forth. I don't know how much you want to.
We'll get into that. We'll get into that in a bit. And you mentioned that Strawberry Alarm Clock was not the original name of the band, and I've heard a couple of stories. One has it that it has to do with a Beatles song and an old alarm clock, and the other one has to do with some drugs. So we'll go right from the drugs into the Beatles and alarm clock story.
Well, if you'd like me to clear that up, I can do it pretty briefly. I joined the band. It was an English cover rock band in Glendale, California. I auditioned they needed a keyboard player, and I auditioned, and the next thing you know, we were playing in teen nightclubs and stuff like that. But it was all like English rock covers. And after Ed and I came up, they said, well, we need to come up with an original song. So when we recorded this and it was ready to be released, under the Sixpence, there was another band at the time that had the same name, and it would be too confusing to have 2 bands with the Sixpence. So our record company, Uni Records, asked us to come up with a new name for the band. And what we did was we were at my house where we rehearsed one night, and we were sitting around trying to come up with a new name. And I threw out Strawberry from Strawberry Fields Forever, being at that time, one of my favorite Beatles songs that came out. Mm-hmm. So we grabbed the Strawberry from that, and we were trying to hook it up to another name. There was a lot of groups out, like Moby Grape and Electric Prunes, and it wasn't unusual to have names like this. I'm sure we could go on and on with all kinds of different names that were coming out of the woodwork. Chocolate Watch Band, 13th Floor Elevator. I mean, just crazy, names that were, linked to like psychedelic groups all the time. And so the room was real quiet. We were real tired. It was about 1 o'clock in the morning, and the only noise in the room was this little electric alarm clock over in the corner. And the second hand, every time it went around, it scraped the face. And Lee Freeman, one of the guys in the band, and I looked at each other at the same time, and simultaneously we said alarm clock. That is the true story. That's how it happened. Anything you've ever heard is all, hearsay and people's guesses and things. But that's exactly how we hooked up Strawberry and alarm clock. We called you the next day. We told them. It took a couple of seconds to sink in, and they approved it, and that's the origin of the name.
There's the original story, ladies and gentlemen. Right here on W Rock, you hear how Strawberry and Alarm Clock got their name, and from the mouths of the people who gave it to them. So there you are. That's great. We're going to go now to one of your songs. We're going to take a break here and go to one of your songs. We've got 4 songs here lined up, ready to go. Drifting Away, Mr. Farmer, Wake Up, and World Citizen. Which one do you want to go with first, guys?
George, what do you like to play?
I want to hear Drifting Away. I love the song. Can I say something about the song real quick?
Yeah, we'll get the song set up. George, go ahead and tell us a little bit about Drifting Away and all about this new song you guys are putting out.
So anyway, we recorded it with Steve Bartek, who is he's like an in and out member of our band. He's been like mostly out, but in the whole time, and he played flute on the first album. But anyway, he ended up in the band Oingo Boingo because he was too young to tour with us. And as a result, he ended up as a very successful, producer, guitarist, and now does film scores with Danny Elfman. And he has his own recording studio. So he invited us over and said, I want the band to record and do an album. Just start doing songs and see if we can do an album. Anyway, we started playing all kinds of stuff. We had carte blanche was the deal. We could record every day. And Mark had this beautiful song that he was writing called Drifting Away. And it was about he can tell you better what it's about, but Mark's wife passed away, and it's kind of like his, finding his way again back into the world years later, and it was a gorgeous song. And we went to the studio. We kind of kept playing with it, and it kind of morphed into something other than what Mark had originally meant it to be. But it's still a beautiful thing, and I love it. Mark can tell you a little bit more maybe about how it started and what it means to him. And I think you should, Mark.
Well, I'll try to keep it really brief. I just purchased this new keyboard. It's by Korg. It was called an Oasis. It was their flagship of keyboards. It's a discontinued model, but it had 3 computers on board. And this song just came to me. It was an inspiration. I told the band, I said, hey, I got this great song. And when I brought it to the band, it morphed into what it turned out in the studio. But it's basically, the song is about when my wife passed away in 2004. I went through a big depression, and I've never been depressed a day in my life. And the song kind of came out of that. And the band put their musical ideas into it, and it went on our 2010 album. First album we put out since 1969. So I hope everybody likes it. It's a departure from the normal Strawberry Alarm Clock tunes that we do. But, that's one thing about our band, the Strawberry Alarm Clock. I have to say, every one of our songs is different. We don't, if you listen on our new album that we're working on, we hope to have an EP out in the next couple of months, 3-song EP. And each song is totally different. The instrumentation is still us, but our variety and versatility on writing is where we like to concentrate on, and everybody gets a chance. It's a group effort, kind of democratic way of writing songs. Kind of difficult to do these days, but somehow we work it out. And sometimes some of the songs get to go off in a different direction, but most of all, we work together pretty good, and we're starting to come together as a good writing unit now. But it's taken us 8 years to get this far because we do have our day jobs. So anyway, I hope everybody enjoys the song "Drifting Away."
Okay, let's go listen to "Drifting Away," and when we come back, we're going to talk about how the Birdman of Alcatraz had so much to do with "Incense and Peppermint" becoming a #1 hit.
taking chances and drifting away. I'm skipping romances, I'm drifting away from your heart. Floating away on a sea of madness and fighting the tears from all the sadness and breaking away from your heart. Drifting away, I have found peace now, remembering the day I was still on a path to breaking away from your heart. Drifting away, I'm taking my chances and drifting away and skipping romances, I'm drifting away from your heart. Yes, I'm drifting away. Drifting away, just drifting away. I'm still drifting away, just drifting away. I'm just drifting away, still drifting away, still drifting away.
Drifting Away, ladies and gentlemen. Great, great song, Strawberry Alarm Clock. And we have on the air with us tonight George Bunnell and Mark Whites. And wow, that was a fantastic song. That is really touching. Congratulations. Go ahead.
Yeah, I love that song too.
Yeah, it's brilliant. It's brilliant. Oh man, I know Sherry got tears in her eyes listening to that.
Well, thank you for saying that, Jerry. I appreciate it.
It is really touching. It was a very, very, very good song. Very
I do, actually.
Yeah, Sherry's got tears in her eyes. Yeah. What growing up in Southern California like I did, guys, back in the '60s and '70s, we went to such places as the Whiskey A Go Go, Gazzari's, London Fog, Rainbow, Filthy McNasty's, the Roxy, and so many more. When you guys were coming up, what was your influences? What type of bands was it you guys were going out and listening to influence your own music?
For me, it was the Nazar Blue and the Yardbirds and the Who, but earlier on it was like weird stuff, like from Broadway and stuff. I used to really like musicals and stuff when I was a young kid. Mark had done classical back then.
Well, I think, I was a few years older than the other guys in the band, and one generation before put me right in the 50s music. I was a huge fan of doo-wop, Dion and the Belmonts, and the Diamonds, and I mean, I wore out my 45s pretty badly. I was listening to a radio station in LA called K-Day, and they played all those hits all the time, and I used to record when I was 13 years old. I had a reel-to-reel tape recorder. I used to record all the doo-wop songs off of the, I was Frankie Valli, well, they were called the Four Seasons back then, and songs like, and way before that, Jan and Arnie, before it was Jan and Dean, and I was into the Everly Brothers, Elvis Presley, all the earlier Chuck Berry. I was influenced, and then a little later into the 60s, bands like the Hollywood band called The Seeds, Sky Saxon and The Seeds, and I actually had a band together before I joined the six-band pre-alarm clock, and we used to do the Seed songs, Pushing Too Hard, and so on and so forth. So, and a lot of English rock, especially Stones and Beatles, primarily. Yardbirds, like George said, huge influence. And I was a keyboard player. I actually listened to guitar all the time. I didn't pay attention too much to keys. On a few songs, I would pick up little bits and pieces. Dave Clark 5. I mean, there's so many groups that were an influence, but I think what the Strawberry Alarm Clock was a kind of accumulation of everybody's, and most bands are, we take all our backgrounds and we try to shove it through a funnel and come out with our own original sound. It doesn't sound like anybody else. We didn't want to say it's a wannabe group that sounds like fill in the blank. Right. We wanted to come up with our own 60s patented kind of sound, and I think that at that point in time, we were pretty lucky to be able to evolve with the chemistry that we had. Although sometimes there's different ideas and of how do we arrive at in the band, and small little disagreements and things like that. But I think when push comes to shove, we all wanted the same thing.
Well, that's what development of a band's all about. You take all the influences you can, and like you say, shove them all together and come up with something totally unique. And Strawberry Alarm Clock surely fit that category. I mean, what you guys did and what you guys are doing now and what you're going to do in the future is just sensational. We love it, and we're happy that you're back doing what you're doing again. But I mentioned before going to the break that the Birdman of Alcatraz, not Alcatraz, but Alcatraz, had a lot to do with Incense and Peppermints becoming number one song, because it was actually the A side of the 45 that was released, and Incense was on the back side, the B side, and Birdman of Alcatraz did not make it the big hit that it was intended to be, but Incense sure did. Well, how did that come about? I heard it was about a disc jockey. Is that correct?
Well, Jerry, that disc jockey story, I think that applies to something else. If you want to talk about it, we can do that. But the reason that when we recorded Incense and Peppermints and it was finished in an entirety, we did not. They wanted to put a 45 out, and we didn't have an original song for the flip side. So, literally in the studio, myself and Lee Freeman, another member of the band, original Sixpence member, Lee played. He was a vocalist, lead vocalist, and also a guitar player and harmonica, and several other instruments. But Lee actually and I came up with the lyrics to the Birdman of Alcatraz right in the studio. I think it took me 25 to 30 minutes to write that song. It just kind of came to me. I wrote it on a Farfisa compact organ, this little Italian organ that I used to haul around with me all over when we used to. And it's the same organ that I used on Incense and Peppermints. But we recorded it. It was kind of a novelty. I would call it a novelty song. Some people now look back at it and call it as one of the first punk kind of songs. And I didn't really look at it in that light. But looking back, I guess you might want to categorize it quasi-punk. But because the word punk wasn't even really established yet, because there was no genre of music.
That's right.
But what happened was originally it was supposed to be the Incense and Peppermints. I always thought that was going to be the A side, and then I signed out later that our producer and manager wanted Birdman of Alcatraz on the A side because they thought it'd be a good novelty song. And then when they pressed it, whatever decisions were made, whether Uni Records had anything to do with it or not, but Incense and Peppermints, I don't know really how it got put on the A side, but that's all history. So that's how Birdman of Alcatraz came along. It was a hastily written song in the studio, and we were joking around, and there's duck quacks in it throughout it, and it's, I'm embarrassed to do it on stage. A lot of people ask the band to do it, and I kind of try not to, encourage people to ask me to do that song because it is a little embarrassing going back over the years. So anyway, that's the story behind that. Was there another part of that? You mentioned a disc jockey.
Yeah, we'll get into that in a bit. We're going to go to another break here, and we're going to bring in one of your songs again. So we got Mr. Farmer, Wake Up, and World Citizen. Which one do you guys want to do now? And then when we get that set up, we'll get that set up, and you can tell us a little bit about that song. Which one would you like to do now?
I'd kind of like to hear Wake Up.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing.
All right, tell us a little bit about Wake Up, and when we come back, we're going to talk about another interesting fact about Incense and Peppermints. It wasn't even sung by a member of, the original wasn't even sung by a member of Strawberry Alarm Clock, so we'll talk to the guys about that. But we'll hear about the Wake Up, and Sherry will get it ready in the engineer's booth here to broadcast out to you guys. So tell us a little bit about Wake Up.
Wake Up is a song that was written actually by our current guitar player, Howie Anderson. And Howie, he's our newest member. He's been in the band since 1987. So he kind of goes way back. And he's a great writer, too. And we all sit around and write together, essentially. But it ends up, whoever kind of started the song is the one that wrote it. So Howie, it's his song. We call it Howie's song. Like the last one we call Mark's song, of course. And anyway, it's a song. Really, I think it was about him and his kids, his relationship with his children, and breaking away from it. But he and Mark were working on this song for forever, I guess. They were playing it all different sorts of ways. But anyway, the outcome, we ended up in the studio, and the outcome was that the band kind of took over and turned it into a band song. So it's a jam song, which that's kind of what happens with us. We're pretty much like a jam band. Anyway, there you have it.
There you go. Well, let's hear "Wake Up," and when we come back, we'll hear about who actually sang on "Incense and Peppermint."
This is not the world I thought I'd see. This is not the life I thought I'd lead. Given half the chance, I'd turn it back and find my way back to what we had. Now we watch our children rise and fall.
we are, ladies and gentlemen. It's Wake Up There. It's a bit of a long song, but fantastic, great song. And we're on the air with George Pinnell and Mark White, and we're bringing you Strawberry Alarm Clock here on W Rock Radio, ladies and gentlemen. Great song, guys. Tell us a little bit about how we can how our listeners can get the song, and where they can go to get that on iTunes and what have you.
It is on Amazon. First of all, this is George, and I was wrong about that. That's Howie's new song is the one that's about his kids. This one here is, about the talking heads on TV.
Okay.
Yeah. So the album you can get on Amazon and on eBay and on everywhere. It's like all over the place. It's on iTunes. Okay. It's pretty much everywhere.
Cool. And give your website, George.
It is www.strawberryalarmclock.com. And
so if you go to our if you go to our website, there's a place that'll take you to all the albums that it'll direct you to all the albums that we have put out, including the best of. And I think there's 5 or 6 albums available on CD that you can buy. So check out the website. There's a lot of information there if you're a Strawberry Alarm Clock fan and you want to know about some of the members that have been in the band. There's a little bio on all of us and some cool pictures and stuff. So if you check it out.
There's
cool.
There's a Facebook page too. How do you get there, Mark?
If you go to Facebook and there's a couple of pages that you put in Strawberry Alarm Clock. So I mean, both of them they're pretty much both official pages. Actually, so you toggle between the two Strawberry Alarm Clock pages on Facebook, and you'll see other postings that have photos of us, some of our past gigs, and so on and so forth. You'll figure out easily, which one that you like, and a couple of people have put up some Strawberry Alarm Clock sites, so you just kind of have to weed through them. And the main one has a picture of all us looking. I believe it's the cover of our 2010 album, the new Wake Up album that we put out about 5 years ago. By the way, that particular album was an experiment. We had, for the listeners out there, this band had disbanded back in 74, 75, and then in the 80s it's got back together again for a brief period of time, and then disbanded again, and George Pinnell reignited it, I believe, in George, late 80s, early 90s?
No, it was actually 1982 when Lee and I first hooked up again.
Oh, okay.
And we got you into it.
there was interim members in the band over the years, so there's a lot of confusion across the United States about who is actually in the band. So the guys you're talking to right now, we were in the original band back in the 60s. There was probably 24 members of people that have floated in and out of the Strawberry Alarm Clock in the 80s and the 90s. There was also a fraudulent couple of Strawberry Alarm Clocks, which our ex-manager put out on the road, so it became very confusing for a while. But when we rebanded back in, was it 2007, George?
2006, and then 2006.
Yeah, 2006. George called me and said, "Hey, Mark, we're putting the band. Steve Bartek is going to join the band," which was a big fan of mine and great musician. And he wrote a couple of our songs on the first album, like George mentioned. I think briefly, Steve was too young to join the band. He was 15 years old and he was still in school. And So anyway, when George called me in 2006 and said that, hey, Mark, we're putting the band back together and Steve Bartek's going to be in it, I jumped on board. George had asked me over the years a couple of times to rejoin, and I wasn't comfortable rejoining with the band for several reasons. But anyway, as time has gone on since 2006, the band has we've come to a point now where we are starting to gel. You have to remember that we all have our day jobs. We're almost all of us have day jobs. I think our one member, Howie Anderson, our lead guitar player, is a full-time musician 24/7. So he is one of the lucky ones. As much as we would love to be able to do that, the music business has changed quite a bit drastically over the years, and so making a living playing all the time as a musician is become harder and harder and way more difficult than it used to be.
It's changed times, isn't it? Changed times.
Yeah. So
well, we've got.
Yeah, go ahead.
So we've got so many people listening in on the lines tonight, guys, and this show is being received very, very popular out there by our listening audience because our numbers are just going like crazy here. Would you guys be willing to be able to stay over just a little bit extra so we can get on all your songs and get in more stories from Strawberry Alarm Park? Great.
Absolutely.
Normally this show just goes an hour, but we're having such a great time, and the numbers are going like crazy here. So we're going to extend over for a half an hour tonight, ladies and gentlemen, and bring you everything we can about Strawberry Alarm Clock and all that's happening with it. Great.
Yay!
Before the break there, I mentioned that the Incense and Peppermints was the singer was not even a member of the band. Tell us that story. That's pretty interesting.
Let's see, George. I guess I got this.
You're going to have to take that one.
All right. I'm going to try to do a nutshell version. When it came, we had the lyrics. And from John Carter, who wrote the lyrics, which is not in the band, which I already discussed about where the lyrics came from. But we all tried, we got up to the mic and we all tried to sing the lead. We went around the band, and anybody that did lead vocals got up and we ran the tape and we listened back, and our producer, Frank Slay, said, all right, next, we did the next and the next, and nobody was really fitting the part. The voice just wasn't matching the track, and we just didn't have a winner. And then there was a friend of our manager that was a guest at the show, sitting in the studio with us, listening. He was actually a very young, I think he was about 15 at the time, guitar player, and he was trying to start his own band. And he was invited to the session in front of our managers, and we were shrugging our shoulders saying, well, what are we going to do? We don't have a lead singer that sounds right on the song. So we asked Greg, his name was Greg Munford, and Greg, why don't you give a crack at it? So Greg gets up there, they run the tape, we do the playback, and everybody is astonished that he sounded the best out of everyone. And knowing that this was probably going to be the B-side, we figured, well, what harm will it do? We'll go ahead and keep Greg's voice on it. And the song goes, 6 months we pounded the song to the local radio stations trying to get LA airplay. We circled LA, very difficult to get on LA with a brand new song. Back in those days, they had programmers that told the radio stations, these 50,000-watt radio stations, what to play. These were not small 5,000-watt, 1,000-watt stations that were on the periphery of Los Angeles. This was smack in the middle of L.A., and it was very hard to get Incense and Peppermints airplay at the time. So we had to go up and down the coast of California. There was no videos. There was no MTV. You had to really pound the pavement, and we drove hundreds and hundreds of miles. We played every small town, trying to promote our record, every small radio station. KIST in Santa Barbara, California. It was a 5,000-watt station that put out a relatively weak signal. That didn't come into L.A., unfortunately, but we were doing the surrounding areas near here. And finally, there was a disc jockey in L.A. It was an AM underground radio station. It was KBLA, and the disc jockey's name was Dave Diamond. And he had a request line, and every night he'd open the request line up for new songs that were being done by a lot of the LA underground bands, trying to get to hear your song on the radio. If he got enough requests, he would actually play an unprogrammed. He was kind of like a renegade underground programmer himself, and he would play whatever he wanted. It was on an AM station, but he called it an underground station. And I don't know the politics behind it, but anyway, Dave Diamond got so many. We had all our friends call the station until the lines were flooded, and he actually played the song, and we were hearing for the first time Incense and Peppermints on LA radio, which was what we were. It was a huge goal that we had set, and it took us 6 months of playing up and down the California coast, every little tiny town, and we finally got it on LA airplay, which then one of the other stations picked it up, and it started moving up the charts, and I guess the rest was history, and it went to number one and stayed on Billboard for, I think, 3 weeks as number one, with a lot of other heavy hitters right behind us. We worked hard for it. That song, we really worked hard to get that song where it was.
You know, some songs that you put out there, some songs in music, and I mean, a lot of music you can't orchestrate. It just happens. Things happen, and there's you know two facts there. I mean, it was a B-side of a 45 that was put out, and a 15-year-old sitting around the recording studio ends up being the main vocalist on it. So these are things you can't plan, and that's why music is so special. Things happen that generate, you know, these amazing songs that are going out there. And Incense Peppermints, it's out there as one of the greatest songs of all time. So, I mean, there's no doubt about it. You know.
I think you brought up a couple of good points, Jerry, and I appreciate that compliment. I take that as a huge compliment coming from you, because there are a lot of good songs out there.
Oh, there were. And you guys were that song was on the chart. That song was on the chart for 16 straight weeks. I mean, it wasn't just like it came on and went off. I mean, you came in it came in at number 89 on the charts, and 9 weeks later it moved up to number one and continued on the charts for several weeks thereafter. So, I mean, Incense Peppermints, it's one of my favorites of all time. I mean, I'll openly say that I love that song. And in December 7th of 1967, you guys got your 1 million copies sold, and you got your gold disc, and that must have been an amazing situation. I've talked to George, and I've talked about this in the past, about how he felt when he finally heard Incense Peppermints as a number one song coming out on the radio, and the thrill that was. I mean, how did you feel, Mark? What was your feeling when you heard, you know, you hit number one with this song?
I would say I screamed as loud as I could out the window, driving down Sunset Boulevard, you know, in Hollywood. I mean, it was, like I said, 6 months. We had this song. Everybody said it was great, but we couldn't get it on LA airplay. And if it hit LA, that means it would go to Dallas, Texas. It'll go to New York. It'll go to Chicago, San Francisco, all over the nation. Once, you know, this was kind of the gateway to getting airplay all over the United States, which of course equals record sales, and so on and so forth. So it was it was one of those things where it was surrealistic to the point where you'd ask yourself these rhetorical questions: did we make it? Are we like a well-known band now, or what's going to happen? You know, it was all X the unknown. I mean, here we were, you know, kind of a garage band that finally, you know, the reality was that like kind of your dream was coming true, and then of course at that point you go, well, how long is this going to last? And then you rush back and you try to come up with a follow-up hit that would ride on the shirt tails of the hit before, so you can try to keep the goal of try to keep a string of hits coming, and that's what Uni Records asked us to come up with a follow-up record to Incense and Peppermints almost immediately.
Wow. George, share with us your thoughts. I mean, you shared it with me, but share it with our listeners. You were ecstatic as well.
What's that?
I say share with our listeners how you felt when it became number one. You were ecstatic as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I didn't go through all the hoops and shoots and ladders that the rest of the band had to go through to make it a number one hit, but I went through a lot of it, and because I was there before it actually became a hit or anything. And I remember the jubilation when we were told that Bill Drake, who I guess he owned a bunch of radio stations across the country, and he said, or he was like some kind of radio king, and we heard that he was going to put it on 250 stations across the U.S. And we were like, what? And when that happened, then the record really had a life of its own, and it was just climbing the charts by then. But it was on the charts for quite a while, and it was, before it was ever on the charts, there was like a long period of time where the band was going around trying to get radio stations to play it. We had, of course, KIST, like Mark was saying, in Santa Barbara, Johnny Fairchild. He made it a hit up there, all on his own. And then I think he turned our manager on to a disc jockey down in San Diego and one in Palm Springs. And so we were going down and interviewing in these radio stations down there and doing, shows, live shows. One of my favorite moments, actually, was we played with the band Stop With Camel in Palm Springs. Oh, and I love the guy did the greatest bass solo in that song. I forget the name of the song, but anyway, they were cool. They disappeared. I don't know what happened to them. But anyway,
like a lot of bands, they came and went.
Yeah, I mean, nobody knows what happened to us either. But we're around though.
Still around.
One thing I wanted to chime in real quick. The listeners that are listening right now, I'm not sure if many people out there listening are aware that our contacts were radio stations back in those days. There was no videos and ways to get your song played without doing it the old-fashioned way. And that things are so different now, and done so differently. Back then, it was all analog everything. You had to literally expend the energy to get these songs rolling. Aside from, of course, there was always behind-the-scenes payola, which...
I remember those days.
Well, Dave Diamond has passed, so I guess we can say it.
Yeah, those were the good old days. The great thing about where you guys are right now is that you're still doing your music. You're putting out new music, and we love that. And it's great to have that that synergy with the old and the new, and and putting stuff out for the new generations to come in. But I today on Facebook I put up that Strawberry Alarm Clock was going to be on the show tonight, and I put it out all over the place. And I was bombarded. I've been bombarded all day long about people. When is it on? I got to listen. I got to hear. So you guys have an enormous following out there. Believe me, an enormous following, and they're all loyal Strawberry Alarm Clock fans, and love you guys dearly. So thank you for doing what you're doing, because it's you're fulfilling their dreams of hearing you guys, and they love every minute.
Hey Jerry, I'm sorry I cut myself off here. I'm back on.
No problem. Welcome back.
Yes, Jerry, thank you. This is a great forum for us. It's really fun, and it would be cool to hear people's questions to us. But we're hearing your questions, which I'm sure are representative of what people out there might want to hear.
Oh, yeah. People will be sending in questions all day to me.
Yeah. And I know you're really good at questions. They're deep. They're really come from a really knowledgeable place. So they're fun to answer. They elicit long answers.
I'm sure
all answers are good answers.
Yeah.
I'm sure a lot of listeners are wondering our outfits that we wore on stage. If anybody wants to ask about that, we'll be more than happy to tell you about that.
I'd like to hear
about
it.
You want to know if you wear those to work at the present day, if you're still wearing those.
We are.
You are.
We are.
I know, George. I've seen you around town, George.
Yeah, not around town, not too much.
All right, look, we're going to go take another break here, guys. We're going to do another of your songs that are out there right now, and we got two left. And one is Mr. Farmer, and the other one is World Citizen. So if you let us know which one you want us to line up for you, and then tell us a little bit about it, we'll get that ready for you.
Hey, well, I chose the other two, so go ahead, Mark.
I think I'd like to end up with Mr. Farmer. So let's do World Citizen. This is our drummer, Randy Seal. This is a song that he did for a man that recently passed away, Gary Davis. He was a friend of Randy's, and he came up with the idea of a world passport that would allow every citizen on the face of the earth to travel to any country, no matter what country it was, with this world passport. Now, as it stands now, you can't do that. You can't go from country to country. You have to have a passport specifically issued for that country. But he felt we're all citizens of the world, and he was behind a drive. He was an ex-World War II bomber pilot that literally was dropping bombs during World War II onto people from way up in the sky in these B-29, B-19 bombers. And he finally he got to the point where he said, this is complete, idiocy, trying, here I am dropping bombs on people that have never done anything wrong to me and everything, because he was following the orders from the generals and things. And he said, I'm either gonna, kill myself, or I'm going to go for peace. So he came up with this way to deal with it, about the whole world is we're all on one, we're one people, and we should be able to go from nation to nation without any problems, because we are one world. We aren't different worlds, So anyway, Randy, he was a friend of Randy Seals, our drummer, again, like I said, and Randy wrote this song about Gary Davis's idea and about coming to the world and trying to get everybody get a world passport, so that we can all go from country to country and move about freely throughout the earth without any resistance from the local governments and stuff. Of course, it didn't come to fruition, but he was able to go from U.S. to Canada, and they did get used to Gary doing that, and a few other countries. I understand that he got into by answering some specific questions, but the World Citizen song was an exercise that we did to live out Randy's vision of the song about the world passport and world unity, so on and so forth, between nations.
Well, fantastic. That's a great concept and a great philosophy to live by. And we're gonna listen to World Citizen. And when we come back, ladies and gentlemen, we're on the air here now with George Bunnell and Mark Weiss of Strawberry Alarm Clock. And when we come back, we're going to talk about some friends of ours, mutual friends of ours, John Abdullah, Johnny Vassos, and Oingo Boingo, and how the two Strawberry Alarm Clock and Oingo Boingo get along together. So stick with us. We'll be back. Here we go with World Citizen.
All of my life I dreamed to find the gold where the rainbow ended. Then one amazing day I found it, and into its glow I transcended. Scintillating colors played around me like a heavenly mist. As I swirled in red, green, and gold hues, my mind reminisced. Feelings inside, so warm, so great. by chance or law of attraction, I saw 5 German in a race and hover over the Pacific Ocean to plunge in the foam and brine. Like heavenly bodies, they implanted a message for humankind. Feelings inside me, so warm, so great. When thoughts happen, be patient, because it's one world, a turning in space. It's one world to make safe in its place. Humanity's home, it has stars for a dome. It's the roots of the human all of my life I prayed somebody find a way to end our war. Then one day I met Gary Darby, said he made my mind sore. My country is the world, he said, and he thrives in that creation. For 60 years he lives as a citizen of no one nation. Feelings inside, so warm, so great. When thoughts happen, be patient, because it's one world, a turning in space. It's one world to make safe in its place. It's one world, united and free. One flag unfurled for you and for me. Oh, you like it when I world citizens.
Wow.
So you know what? Actually, that song was written. Besides the story that Mark was telling, they did a documentary on Gary Davis, and
Wow.
the song was written for the documentary, and that's how we got involved with it. We
Wow,
were commissioned to write a song, which is also the story that will precede Mr. Farmer. We were basically asked to do a song as a tribute to Sky Saxon after he passed away, and there's an album. But anyway, that's another Mark story because it's Mark singing Mr. Farmer.
It's amazing, amazing song, and we'll do Mr. Farmer before we end the show tonight. But tell us a little bit about the band. We'll be playing some of your newer songs, and tell us a little bit about the makeup of Strawberry Alarm Clock now. Run down the different guys in the band now.
Okay, this is interesting. So we have 2 drummers, and they are both original members of the band.
All right.
Randy Seal, it's really weird. So Randy Seal is the one that was just now singing. He was our drummer that was the lead singer, and he sang the song Tomorrow. He also sings on Incense and Peppermints. He sings the duet part in the, I think, second or third verse with Greg Munford, who was the young guy that was never in the band. And then Gene Gunnels is our other drummer. He is actually the drummer on Incense and Peppermints, and he quit the band at the behest of his then-girlfriend, who made him quit the band to make a choice between her and the band. So he got a job at McDonald's. He ended up getting a job at McDonald's, and then then all of a sudden the song becomes a big #1 record, and I think he murdered her. I'm not quite sure how that went. But anyway, so she's buried under a bunch of hamburgers somewhere probably. So anyway, that's the two drummers, Gene Gunnels and Randy Seal, and they're both in the band now, and they Randy also played vibes, and so the two drummer thing allows us to have Gene playing drums and Randy playing vibes, and when they sometimes both play drums at the same time, they're kind of the opposite style drummers, where Gene is the backbeat kind of drummer and Randy is a jazz kind of drummer, and so they're completely different. So it's kind of fun actually. And then we have myself and Mark White, of course. Mark being the keyboardist and organist and all that kind of stuff, and singer, and me playing bass. And then we have Howie Anderson, who is our newest member, like I said, from '87, and he's the lead guitarist. And we also have, who's the other guy? Steve Bartek. Steve Bartek is flute and guitar and other fun things, and he produces us, and he's just like kind of a mentor to us too. He helps arranging and stuff. That's basically it in a nutshell.
Well, Steve Bartek leads us into what I was talking about as we broke away for the break there, and we have mutual friends, as you well know, in John Avila and Johnny Vatos and the boys from Oingo Boingo, and they like. Go ahead.
They're all very close friends of ours. Yeah.
Oh yeah, they're all good friends. Yep. And
yeah.
Oingo Boingo, we're going to have John and Johnny on the show as well in the near future here. And Oingo Boingo, like these Sixpence, had to change their name too. And they were telling me a funny story about how they were the Mystic Knights of the Oingo Boingo at one point, and a band up in Northern California were known as the Mystic Knights and wanted to sell their name to them for $700 back in the early 70s, and $700 back then was not an awful lot of money. So they just dropped the Mystic Knights and went with Oingo Boingo. So that's the story on how Oingo Boingo got their name. But John Avila and Johnny Vatos are mutual friends, and I know that you go out and see them, and they go out and see you whenever they can. So that's the synergy of music right there. Everybody working together.
Yeah, we're all, and then Steve Bartek that's this tie-in. That's how it all came about.
Right.
Yeah, the one thing I wanted to say though, unfortunately Steve can't play with us all the time because of his heavy schedule as a ranger for Ed Nelson. And what happens is the actual 5 members of the group that are guaranteed, if you come see us, are always going to be George, myself, Randy, Gene, and Howie. The 5 of us are actually the band per se. Steve loves to play with us when his schedule permits. So at the present time, we are being produced by somebody new, and so we're seeing where that goes too. We have some new songs we're working on, and so we can get into that at some point. But anyway, I just wanted to clear that up about we would love. Steve was actually a solid member of the band from 2006 to 2009. He had a bow out due to the fact that his schedule became so heavy with Danny Elfman's scoring that he was unable to be a full-time member of the band. But we miss Steve, and anytime we play in town that he's around, he's always willing to jump in, and we always welcome his presence on stage.
There you go. Yeah, and I can tell you, when you're scoring movies, it's a pretty tough thing. I worked with John Entwistle on Jerry Maguire, and that was grueling. We've spent many hours and trying to get all the music together, and then they cut a whole scene, and there goes all your music, and devastating, but it's all part of the game. Just another question for you guys. Whatever happened to Greg Munford?
Greg Munford had his own band. I can't quite remember the name. I don't want to I don't want to say the wrong name, but Greg ended up moving back east, and I recall him being an advertising company, and he came out to visit 10, 15 years ago. I spoke to him, and he hasn't, as far as I know, hasn't gone back into music at all. It was just a point in time in his life, as far as I know. But
wow,
yeah,
a fluke chance. He went right to one of the greatest. He's the voice of one of the greatest songs of all time. Unbelievable.
I mean, there is definitely probably the wake of some bitterness there because of the fact that essentially, back in those days, you really didn't get paid anything. Right. If you sang a song and happened to be there, you don't get paid for it. If the song, like for instance, myself and Ed wrote the music, but when it went to publishing, our producer Frank Slay put it down as John Carter as the writer of the song. So basically, I lost out on $500,000 worth of royalties. This is what went on in the business back then, and a lot of times the producers and managers said, "Well, you have to forfeit the song to get yourself, on the charts. You have to." And we bought all this hook, line, and sinker back then because at the time we were making pretty good money, and they just kept feeding us these checks every week. And of course, that back in those days, if you made $500 a week in 1967, it would be like making, $3,000 a week now, I suppose. So we kind of kept our mouths shut and did what we were told to do.
Yeah, that was the way it was. And then you also had the guys from the Wrecking Crew that were on almost all the big hits of all time back in those days and never got credit for playing on them. And that was just a different era, different time.
That's a very good example. That's a great example right there.
Yeah. For years I was telling people that the Beach Boys didn't play on their own albums, and I was, there was malign that how can you say that? But now, the Wrecking Crew movies out and all that, people are seeing that there was two different versions of music back then. There was the studio, and then there was touring, and
Well, there was, that's funny you mentioned that because there was people that said, well, the Stars of Alarm Clock doesn't really play all their music, and we have played every note, with the exception of our third album. They brought in George Tipton to do some horn and string arrangements. We played every note on every album. And to date, so a lot of times rumors fly here and there, but it's pretty typical of the industry.
Yeah. Well, bands like Strawberry Alarm Clock changed that vibe, and then the Beatles came along and arranging and writing and doing their own stuff, and the music industry changed, and so did the paychecks of the Wrecking Crew. They were making a hell of a lot of money back then, and then the bands came along and started doing their own things. But that was a different time and different era, and let's go to another break here. We're getting close to running out of time here now, but we're going to do Mr. Farmer. Tell us a little bit about that, and then we'll come back and we'll talk a little bit about the other hits Strawberry Alarm Clock had, and we'll end up the song. We'll end up the evening again with how we started with Incense and Peppermints. But right now we're going to talk about Mr. Farmer, and Sherry can get that ready for us and tell us about Mr. Farmer.
Okay, to keep it brief, I will try to run it down real quick. Sky Saxon was the lead singer of a band, a local Los Angeles Hollywood band called The Seeds. And they had it's three major hits as far as I know. And Pushing Too Hard, Can't Seem to Make You Mine, and Mr. Farmer, and Sabrina Saxon, which of course was the wife of Sky Saxon. After he had passed away a few years back, I think around 2010, she decided that she was going to assemble a 2 CD set of the Seed song, but done by other bands of the era and psychedelic bands and so on and so forth. And like for instance, the Electric Prunes did Pushing Too Hard, which was a Seed song, and that ended up on the CD. And then I asked Sabrina if our band can do Mr. Farmer, because I always liked that song. In fact, it might have had an influence on me to come up with the riff that I used on Incense and Peppermints, possibly. that Daryl Hooper, the original and still is the living keyboard player of the Seeds, and he's alive and well and still playing. But what we did was we went into the studio, and I came up with a version, an arrangement of Mr. Farmer, where I tried to listen. I bought the actual 45 on eBay, and I put it in my jukebox, and I listened to it for about 2 weeks so I could get the intonation right. And I tried to get my voice to sound a little bit like Sky's. Not exactly, because I wanted to do kind of a memorable vocal track. So I really tried my best to rise to the occasion of being able to be honored to be able to do that song with the Strawberry Alarm Clock backing me up. And we came up with an arrangement, went into Steve Bartek's studio, and Steve, with his genius of post-production, came up with some great effects and things that, and his son Chris Bartek did a little bit of drum programming on our live drums. So we got the track to pop a little bit, and we submitted it to Sabrina, and it is on a compilation album that was supposed to be out by now. I think it turned into a 3 CD set now. I don't know when it's going to be released, but a lot of bands have done a lot of work to make this memorial album complete, and I'm not quite sure when it's going to be released, and if and when it's going to be released. But the money from the proceeds of this CD was supposed to go to moving Sky Saxon's grave from Los Angeles to Hawaii, where he ultimately wanted to be buried.
Oh, wow.
So that was the backstory on that, and I guess if there's any other questions, we can either go ahead and play the track, or if you have any
we'll go to
questions,
Mr. Farmer now, and when we come back, we'll get into a little bit about Beyond the Valley of the Dolls, the movie, and the Strawberry Alarm Clock participation there. But right now, we're going to hear Mr. Farmer. We'll be right back with George Brunel and Mark White.
See the farmer on the other side of town. He's always working hard till the sun goes down. He's up every morning, right on 5, on wanting green seeds just to come alive. But he don't wear no fall clothes. He's always using a rake and hoe. But his seeds are starting to grow.
There you go, ladies and gentlemen. We're getting bombarded here with all kinds of requests and you know, they love you guys out there. We had somebody text in here that they remember you guys going on stage barefooted sometimes. So those are back in the hippie days of George and Mark and Strawberry Alarm Clock. So you're hitting all the nerves out there, guys. You're hitting all the loving fans are calling in and bombarding us here. But you know, they shared the stage with the likes of the. Yeah, those were the days, my friends. You know, they shared the stage with such bands as the Beach Boys, the Yardbirds, Buffalo Springfield, Leonard Skinner Band, the Doors, Jimi Hendrix, Electric Prunes, Jefferson Airplane, Moby Grape, Wilson Pickett, Neil Young, Country Joe and the Fish, and even the Cowsills you guys played with. So you guys got around, and we got Jimmy down there, Jimi Hendrix. Yeah, we got Jimmy down there. Yeah, those were great times, guys, and I thank you so much for being here with us. They were also in the movie Beyond the Shadow of the Dolls, and there was a 2013 big thing down in Beverly Hills there that wish I had more time. Can we get you guys back again one day and just go through some more about Strawberry Alarm Clock and all the things that you guys have done in music? It's been a great hour and a half, guys. Fantastic, and I can't thank you enough for spending some time.
Thank you, Sherry.
I really do appreciate it.
Thank you.
And we'll see you around Calabasas, George. And thank you, George Quinnell, ladies and gentlemen, Mark White, ladies and gentlemen, Strawberry Alarm Clock. And with that, we're going to end up with the song that resonates throughout our minds and hearts about Strawberry Alarm Clock, and that is Incense and Peppermint. So good night, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for tuning in. This is Jerry Gallagher signing off with George Quinnell and Mark White and Strawberry Alarm Clock, Incense and Peppermint.
Peace and love out to everybody.
Occasions for swaggers flutter your mind. Incense and peppermints, the color of time. Who cares what games we choose? Little to win, but nothing to lose. Incense and peppermints, meaningless nouns. Turn on, tune in, turn your eyes around. Look at yourself, look at yourself. Yeah, look at yourself, look at yourself. Tutor by the cockeyed world in two. Throw your pride to one side, it's the least you can do. Beatniks and politics, nothing is new. A yardstick for lunatics, one point of view. Who cares what games we choose? Little to win, but nothing to lose. Good sense, innocence, cripple mankind. Dead kings and many things I can define. Occasions for sweatings clutter your mind. Incense and peppermints, the color of time. Who cares what games we choose? Little to